It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it is hour number 2, and this is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. We had a great hour. We forever put to rest in our first hour who is big money and who is not big money because we looked at candidates' financials. I want to start this program. We're about to report Conduit News breaking a big story in the special election for Senate District 16. But before we get to that, I do just want to say this. Like, we have a huge, this race is pretty big. It's pretty powerful because it affects every conservative, not just in Senate District 16, but across the state. You just got to look at the primary situation. We've got Republicans versus Republicans all through the state. Okay. Think about this. In the Northwest Arkansas, you have Brian King, who is running in a primary. In North Central Arkansas, you got Linda Collins Smith running in a primary. You've got Jake Files' seat that's open. Okay. That's a primary. Now you have Central Arkansas. David Sanders, Senator Sanders is not running, but you have Mark Johnson who's running against Elliott. Dean Elliott is his name. My point is, all across the state, everybody listening across this state, you need to encourage the people in the River Valley and Russellville to get out and go vote. And conservatives in these areas, then you need to challenge your River Valley friends to come and help you in these other races. And so that we need to have honest debates clearly about this and take our message to the people. My point is, this is a state in a Republican Party that is so divided right now, but the people in the Republican Party at the top don't want to admit that there is a dissenting voice. They don't want to admit that they themselves are not the standard bearers of conservatism, even though they tell themselves they are. I am sick and tired of them passing tax increases, increasing regulations, spending too much money, and then telling us that it's the conservative thing to do. And I know you are as well. It'd be one thing if they did this and said, well, I'm not a limited government Republican, or I'm not a fiscal Republican, but I believe in social issues. But they're not like that. They won't be honest and have the fair debate. And so we have to expose them and get the truth to the people. In my hands here, I have a report. Thanks to our Freedom of Information Act. Let's get to it. This is a letter from the Arkansas Department of Education dated October the 9th, 2017. It is addressed to Dr. Mark Gotcher, who is the superintendent for the Russellville School District. This is about a contract approval request. It's a letter written from the Commissioner of Education, Johnny Key. And it reads, Dear Superintendent Gotcher, I received your request to contract with SAS Institute, of which board member Breanne Davis is employed. In my review, I noted that SAS Institute is the sole source for EVAAS services in the United States. These services provide value-added reports on student growth and projections towards future academic milestones. Additionally, the technology and methodology are proprietary, and SAS is the only provider of the unique services. Ms. Davis does not receive any compensation as a result of this contract and is serving in her last year as a board member. The Russellville School District Board of Directors passed a resolution on October 5th, 2017, approving the contract with SAS Institute. Based on the above stated facts, as well as the resolution, I approve the contract with SAS Institute. Sincerely, Johnny Key. All right, let's go to the next. So what we have here, what I can report to you, is that Breanne Davis's employer is SAS Institute. And as a board member, they contracted, the school board contracted with her employer to the tune of $50,000. Here's the contract disclosure form, because this is the most interesting part to me. Contract disclosure form, the name of the public education entity, the Russellville School District. You see that this is a form apparently filled out by Breanne Davis herself. Thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, Conduit News has obtained it. The name of the person disclosing the transaction, Breanne Davis. She is a board member, okay? And of course, we have her information. And she says, what is the nature of the transaction subject to disclosure and approval? The school district potentially entering into a contract with SAS Institute for their student growth model for students known as EVAAS. The estimated amount of the transactions with public educational entity for the entire school year, $50,000. And here we have, this is the most interesting part. Look at this. This is what Breanne Davis checked herself on this form. I have a financial interest in the transaction with the public educational entity. I have a financial interest in the transaction with the public educational entity. Name of or nature of the financial interest. She wrote, I work for SAS Institute, but will not be receiving any financial compensation for this potential contract. Now, let's just stop right there and let's analyze that. So you're telling me, and this is what's crazy. All of this is legal. There's nothing illegal about this. That's the first thing you need to know. There's absolutely nothing illegal about this. But if you look at the facts, and by the way, transparency is a good thing. She is about to run for Senate. This actually all gets approved. I think the check actually cleared in December of 2017 for $50,000. All of this kind of gives us a window in. And what we have here is Breanne Davis's employer, SAS Institute, made money, and Breanne Davis had something to do with it. Now, she didn't vote on it. She left the room on it. But hey, folks, listen, this happens all the time. There are people that have to recuse themselves down at the Marble Palace. They recuse themselves for one reason or another. Sometimes they don't, though. But their buddies will vote for it. Their friends will vote for it because they know, hey, so-and-so will vote my way on the next bill that I need him to. So and by the way, just because you claim there's no financial benefit, that doesn't necessarily make it so. And I think anybody knows that if money is going to the business and you're getting paid by the business, it all goes into the same pot. So to say, I'm not being compensated, I'm not receiving financial compensation, I don't see how we I don't see we as people can just say, oh, okay, well, because you say you're not receiving financial compensation. And what they mean by that is direct compensation. They mean, okay, Breanne Davis secures a contract with the Russellville School District, with her employer. She's on the board of the school district for $50,000, but I don't receive extra bonuses. I don't receive extra money. But can we all admit that you are being paid by the person, by the entity that's now receiving the government money? Can we all admit that that is the truth? This is a big deal. And I'll tell you why it's a big deal. And I'd like to leave that check mark up there for as long as we can before we move on to our next documents. This is a big deal because this stuff goes on in Little Rock all the time, specifically with educational entities. You know how they talk about how all of this is proprietary? Well, this is proprietary technology. I will refer you to the educational bill that was passed last session, and it had to do with a company out of Texas that had proprietary technology. And it really wasn't proprietary technology. It was a copywritten phrase. They had copywritten this phrase that essentially meant group learning. And it was what was I can't remember, education tree or something tree. This was the company. And they have this particular phrase that is basically group learning, but they had their specific copywritten phrase written into the legislation. So they got awarded a no-bid contract because they were the only people in the United States that offered this specific service. I have seen this game before. So to say, well, there's no other person in the United States that offers this particular thing, that we need. Folks, first of all, everything is proprietary, okay? Everything is proprietary. And we are not idiots. We were not born yesterday. So to think that it's just a coincidence that Breanne Davis's employer gets a $50,000 contract when she's on the Russellville School Board is ludicrous. It makes absolutely no sense. Okay? Yeah, and I'm not saying, look, I'm not there. That's a good point. We do not know. Hang on a second. Hang on, I've got a text message here. We do not know Yeah. Well, exactly. Like we have no way of knowing if she got a bonus. But my point is, you know, we just don't know that. I mean, there's no way of knowing that. I just think it's ludicrous as a society for us to say because they write, I received no financial compensation. First of all, that's not true. You're getting paid by the organization that's getting the money. So you are getting financial compensation. The question is, and what you should have written is, I will not get a bonus, which we don't actually have here in any way, shape, or form. So I think it's evident now as to why Breanne Davis, and this is not a leap, but if you go look at the photos of Breanne Davis with Michael Lamoureux, who was the old senator before the late Senator the late Senator Greg Standridge, and you know that Michael Lamoureux carved out his own financial niche by getting the lobbyists to fund the Faith and Freedom Coalition, 140 grand, and then they pay him 120 grand. And guess what? It was all technically legal. Michael Lamoureux taking that $120,000 was all perfectly legal. Just like all of this is perfectly legal. Do you see which one will fit in with the swamp and which one will not fit in with the swamp? It's unbelievable. I mean, here's another thing. Maybe the company, there's so many unanswered questions, but we as citizens need to know these things. Maybe the company, SAS Institute, hired Breanne Davis in the first place to get the contract. You ever think about that? See, sometimes what came first, the chicken or the egg, the job or we honestly don't know a lot of this stuff. The question is, do you have the appearance of impropriety, the appearance of corruption? And that's what Little Rock is all about. And none of them care. None of them care if they look this way. Folks, the Republican Party of Arkansas allowed Jake Files, who had clearly laundered money, and it was mentioned in an FBI affidavit, had not been indicted yet or pled guilty. They let him stay as the head of the Revenue and Taxation Committee. He was the chairman for a whole year when everybody knew that this man was corrupt and had no business being there. My point is, don't think that if she does this, that's fine. She did this in Russellville, but if she does it down in Little Rock, it's no big deal. It's not a big deal. It's because it'll get exposed. No, it won't get exposed. And if it does get exposed, nothing will happen because nothing happens now until you actually get indicted or you plead guilty or whatever. And by the way, if it's perfectly legal, and so this is the whole thing. People who support Breanne Davis oppose this kind of freedom of information, by the way. People who support Breanne Davis oppose Medicaid disclosure acts, where if she were to get Medicaid money or if she were to go down there and become a consultant, which many people do. Many people have gone down there and become consultants, and we have no way of knowing how much money they're getting from Blue Cross Blue Shield or their PAC or becoming a consultant or whatever. This is big news here, folks, because it gives you a little insight into what she's done. This is right before she files for the state Senate, on her way out, and I'm sure this is planned for a long time. On her way out, she gets a $50,000 contract to her employer. On her way out, it's her last term, and she's the coronated next senator from this area, and she gives $50,000 to her employer from taxpayer money. Again, it's all legal, it's all fine, but are you okay with that? This is the benefit of transparency is what we're seeing here. And you can make your own decisions, but this is the benefit of transparency. The only way to stop this kind of behavior is with your vote, by the way. Senate District 16, the only way to stop this is with your vote. All right? What do we have here? I've got more stuff. I want to go to, just so you know, I want to make sure that we see this. Joe, can you switch over for our online audience that's viewing at facebook.com/Conduit News? I just want you to see the invoice. Okay, here we go. This is to the Russellville School District. It is from the SAS Institute, and that is a bill, an invoice for the $50,000. If you scroll down further, you actually can see, well, I can see the check. It's kind of a dark print, but I actually see the check printout the check number, the routing number, the bank account. We have all of this information from the Russellville School District thanks to the Freedom of Information Act. This is the $50,000 contract that Breanne Davis, that Russellville School District gave to Breanne Davis's employer. Okay. Now, again, if you look at this thing, I want to be perfectly clear here. If you look at the minutes, okay, and what actually happened, it talks about they approved the EVAAS SAS contract, which provides reports. If you look into it further, you'll find that apparently, according to the documents, Breanne Davis said she left the room. She didn't have anything to do with it. And that is all well and good. But you know what? If you know anything about the legislative process works, there's a way to whip votes and not actually vote for something, right? There's certainly a way to whip votes and not vote for something. That is the news. Okay, the Russellville School District entered into a contract with Breanne Davis's employer for $50,000 while Breanne Davis is on the school board. And this happens right before she files for the state Senate. We're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. This is Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Back in just a moment. All right, reading this, the breaking news about Breanne Davis is that the Russellville School Board the school district entered into a contract with Breanne Davis's employer, SAS Institute, for the tune of $50,000. This is right before she decides to get into the Senate race. We see here that she checked on the disclosure form that she does have a financial interest in the transaction with the public education entity. How many of you knew this? And of course, you know, she claims that there's no financial compensation here. This is not true. She works for the organization that gets the money. There's clearly a financial interest in this because the more money your employer has, the more stable that your job is at the very least. Not to mention, we don't know. I mean, yeah, sure, Michael Lamoureux didn't get paid for lobbying as a senator. Yeah, sure, Jeremy Hutchinson never gets paid for lobbying as a senator. I mean, that's what they all say. Breanne Davis here is clearly up to swamp speed already, and she's going to fit in good. She's going to fit in very nice with the status quo, and now I'm thinking maybe this is why they picked her. Whereas Mrs. Davis, a board member, having declared an interest in the proposed contract, left the meeting prior to the discussion of the contract, did not return to the meeting room until the voting on the contract had been concluded. So what? I know how the Marble Palace works. Hey, I need you to vote for this. I'll vote for what you need me to vote for later. That's how it works. I'm glad that we know. The only way to stop this now is with your vote. Again, a $50,000 contract to SAS Institute for something that is supposedly a proprietary technology when everything's proprietary. The real question is, did Breanne Davis get her job so that they could get the contract in the first place? I mean, is it a long play? What is it? How many of you knew that this was going on? Again, Conduit News reporting, thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, that this in fact happened. It happened in October, and it was finalized. That check was actually finalized in December is when it went through. Let me make sure. Let me look at my documents here and see the meeting minutes where the board approved the policy. Hang on one second. Approved a EVAAS contract, and this was dated November the 14th. So it happened November the 14th is when the board approved it. The check came out about a month later in December is when the actual check hit or came out of the Russellville School District's bank account. And we have all of these documents. I have a financial interest in the transaction with the public educational entity. Now, folks, you be the judge. There's nothing technically illegal about any of this. I want to be clear. There's nothing technically illegal. But what kind of government do we want? And I am sick of people carving out their financial interests in government. It happens at the Marble Palace all the time. And you and I both know it happens in local governments all the time. It is now time to stand up with your vote if you want something different. If you want this to continue, if you want to make excuses that there's nothing wrong with this, that's fine. I think most reasonable people would say, you know what? We can't have even the slightest appearance of corruption in our government because it makes us lose faith in the system. It makes us question whether everything you do has some other carrot or some other string attached to it. And that's exactly what goes on in Little Rock, folks. I've seen it firsthand. We desperately need people that don't want this person and this special group to benefit financially, or this special we need everyone in this state to benefit, and we do that by less force, less coercion, and allowing an environment for voluntary cooperation among free men and free women to interact economically without using the government as force to guarantee some taxpayer contract or to guarantee some taxpayer revenue stream. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what our system is supposed to be about, and we have allowed it to become corrupt for too long. This is Conduit News Radio breaking the story. Again, Breanne Davis, while she's on the school board, the Russellville School District entering into a contract with her employer for $50,000. We'll take a break and be back in just a moment. The subject of proprietary technology. And again, Conduit News reporting, breaking a story just now where Breanne Davis, we can report to you, she's the candidate, Asa Hutchinson's pick, and we know now, I think we know now why. As a member of the Russellville School Board, Breanne Davis securing a $50,000 contract late last year in November for her employer, educational services for the district, but $50,000 going to her employer. Of course, she claims there's no financial interest for her. How can you claim that when you work for the company? It's all fungible. That's what was told to me. It's all fungible. Everything is going into the same fund, and you work for them. And if anything, it's better. It's good for your job security. I mean, come on. At the very least, you're using your position in power to secure your job, right? At the very least, there's no question it's a personal benefit to Breanne, whether she voted for it or left the room or not. There's no question she used her. There's no question it's a personal benefit that her position in government benefits her professionally, period. And we don't know if she got a bonus or not. I mean, you never know. You never know if people get a little on the side. I mean, you say that, then that would be just outright dishonesty. There's no proof of that. But I will tell you, there are people down in Little Rock that do that all the time. I have no financial interest, and they get money on the side. That's the whole thing with the kickback case that we're dealing with now throughout the state. It is no wonder Asa Hutchinson supported John Woods, and gave him a fundraiser right before he said he didn't want to run. Okay, it's no wonder Asa Hutchinson refused to ask for Jake Fowler's resignation when everybody knew what he was doing. This is the way the game is played, and Breanne Davis is already at swamp speed. And here we have tangible proof, thanks to the Freedom of Information, that she secured a contract for her employer, or she's on the school board, and the school board and the school district entered into a contract with her employer. Okay, I'd rather say it that way. The phone number, 870-275-9799. Now, Joe, my producer, rightfully tells me I was having trouble figuring out this phrase, but the company, I think it's a Texas-based company. It's called Solution Tree, and this is has nothing to do with Breanne specifically. This is backing up. But last year, or I guess now what? No, it was last year during the session. Okay, we discovered that there was a company called Solution Tree. It's an educational company, much like SAS is helping Russellville with this contract. And Solution Tree actually successfully got a no-bid contract from the state of Arkansas. No one had to bid on it. And the reason is because Solution Tree, or whoever their lobbyist was or are, successfully got a copywritten phrase put into a bill. And so Solution Tree gets to claim that they are the only ones who can provide this particular service, much like Breanne Davis's company is claiming, SAS Institute. They are the only ones who can provide this particular piece of technology, which if it's a software, of course, they're the only ones that can provide this particular piece of software because it's software, and software is written specifically, right? But it doesn't mean that there aren't other softwares out there that do the same thing, okay? all software is proprietary. Okay, can we get that out there? So it's not like, because Breann Davis is going to say they were the only ones that could give Russellville School District what they wanted. That's just not true. Okay, there's lots of educational software out there. It's just not a true statement. Okay, so you can't buy that. I'm getting out in front of this because I already know how they're going to try to spin this. But so that's how this company Solution Tree got their no bid contract. They got it because they were able to get their phrase, their buzzword, which according to Senator Joyce Elliott in the newspaper, she said, I don't even know what this is. It sounds just like group learning. We've had group learning in our schools in Arkansas for decades. But now all of a sudden we're going to give this company a no bid contract. Well, it was discovered that the company had their little copywritten phrase of what we're already doing, but it's their copywritten phrase and it was written into the bill. So when you start to execute the law, the government has no choice because they've got to look for this specific phrase. Well, guess what? There's only one company that uses that specific phrase. And so no one else can provide the service. So it's a no bid contract. And that is what happened at the Marble Palace. And I have a feeling that's exactly what is going on here with Breann Davis Breann Davis on the school board in the Russellville School District entering into a contract with her employer. Again, was Breann Davis hired in the first place so that they could get the contract? I don't know. Okay. She claims that she has no financial stake. That is not true because she works for the company. She gets money from the company who now gets $50,000 from the taxpayer. And we have all the documents. You can go watch the first half hour if you want to see those documents because we put them up on the screen. Folks, it is clear who the big money candidate is. It is clear who the big government candidate is. It is clear who the status quo candidate is. And it is up to the folks of District 16 to make your choice. Make your choice. I'm happy with it. If the people of District 16 choose the status quo and choose big government, I'm going to be sad. I will probably venture that if that happens officially on the ballot, then that would mean that the Democrats really came back out. The Hillary Clinton supporters really came back out because they came back out. They came out the first time, and they came out really a lot of them on Election Day. But whatever. That's the system we have to work within. But if you want something different, if you want to give the people a chance, and I mean all people a chance, not the select Little Rock monolith that runs on the lobbyist machine, that runs off of corporate welfare, that has the ear of so many of these legislators. If you don't want that to happen, and granted, look, I mean, there are lobbyists that can give state representatives and senators information and things like that. But I'm talking specifically about the culture of corruption that is in Arkansas politics. I'm talking about Michael Lamoureux. I'm talking about this, what we're talking about, this issue right now with PBMs and CVS Caremark and everything else and Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm told Blue Cross Blue Shield, by the way, is terrified, like mafia level terrified of CVS Caremark because they're such a big company. You think Blue Cross Blue Shield is big? They got nothing on CVS Caremark. You talk about a bully, right? And it'd be great, I think I've heard some of our establishment Republicans in Little Rock say, I don't like bullies. Well, why don't you stand up to CVS Caremark then? Okay, why don't you Marty McFly to these CVS Caremark bullies then, right? I don't think you're going to do that because of the money, right? For some reason, if you're rich, you're not a bully, okay? You're only a bully if you're me. I'm the bully, right? I'm the bully. I'm the one with the power. You guys have votes that create laws that oppress the people and we all have to live under. You guys actually have the power, but I'm the bully. I'm the conservative bully, right? No, I think not. I think CVS Caremark is the bully. I think Blue Cross Blue Shield is a bully, but it's a lesser of the two, right? Right? It's like a fourth grader bullying second graders, but then you got the sixth grader, and then you got the high school. That's the CVS Caremark. All right, anyway. Sometimes it's fun. It is. It's fun to at least articulate the truth. All right. So the phone number 870-275-9799. You can call or text. It's facebook.com/Conduit News. So what do you guys think? here's the question. Do you believe politicians, not people, but do you believe politicians should get paid for passing or sponsoring a piece of legislation for a private citizen or a private company? Do you believe they should get extra money for doing that? No? Okay, good. Then we can agree that even the appearance of that happening is a bad thing, right? Okay, good. So you look at the data, you look at the facts, and in this District 16 race, we have now evidence, thanks to the FOIA Act, that Breanne Davis, as a member of the Russellville School Board, okay, that the Russellville School District, right before she ran for this Senate seat, she secured a contract for her employer. The Russellville School District secured a contract for her employer to the tune of $50,000. She says, I have no financial interest in this. You know, just like Michael Amaro said, yeah, I took that $120,000, but I'm an attorney. It was all perfectly legal. And it is. It is all perfectly legal. It is all perfectly legitimate. But that doesn't mean we have to like it. And it certainly doesn't mean that we have to go vote for Breanne Davis, because we don't. We have a choice. Now, there are Breanne Davis supporters right now who are listening to this. Probably a lot of them are at the Marble Palace, but there may be some here in Russellville, and they're probably really mad at me right now for telling you this. They're probably doing mental gymnastics trying to figure out, gosh, I really hate that. I really don't like that. Ugh. And you're probably trying to figure out a way, because people are fickle, all right? I'm fickle too. You know why? Because really, it's been said before, anybody who has standards is gonna be a hypocrite at some point, all right? But people will do anything to try to find an excuse. People will to try to not vote for somebody, right? And that's the way it is. Do you want to know why negative attack ads work? Because very rarely do you hear, I'm going to go vote for somebody because they do these things that I agree with. Now, you actually have a really good opportunity to do that with Bob Bailey because he's for a limited government and governing on principles. But a lot of people, especially when we're trying to fight progressivism in the Republican Party, and Asa Hutchinson is the chief progressive. A lot of people who've thought, well, I know, he's a Republican, I don't know what to do. You will try to find any excuse to not vote the correct way. I'm just telling you, when I say correct, I mean the right way. I mean the honest way. I mean vote for the candidate that's not going to continue what is a dishonest practice. It is publicly dishonest what is going on at the Marble Palace. So who's going to fit in there? Do you want somebody to fit in, right? Or do you want somebody to just be an independent voice? And yeah, I mean, as an independent voice, he still takes positions on issues like, limited government, lower taxes, less regulation. I think most people will agree with that, by the way. But when it comes to these unforeseen issues that are going to come up, we don't even know yet. And the pressure mounts, right? And the pressure does mount on these guys. Do you want somebody who's going to go along to get along because Asa Hutchinson says so? Because he's got to protect his political future, political career? I mean, we saw that with the gun legislation. The Second Amendment legislation to just have college professors carry handguns if they want to. And Asa said no. And because Asa said no, none of the Republicans revolted who were working on it. And instead, they worked with Asa and they gave us a garbage piece of legislation to put more regulations. All they did was create 30. Originally, the bill was 4 pages. And after Asa got through with it, it was 30 pages of regulations to your Second Amendment rights. Do you want somebody who's going to say, yeah, that's fine? Or do you want somebody who's going to say, no, let's do right by the people? Let's do right by the people. Now, there are undoubtedly good people on this Russellville School Board, by the way. I want to make that clear, okay? There are undoubtedly probably good people on this school board. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But, and I don't know what was going through their heads when they did this. I'm not trying to throw the entire Russellville School District or school board under the bus. I'm not. But we have to be able to look at objectively I don't know how it went down. I don't know how Breanne Davis I don't know what she said. She probably maybe didn't say anything. I don't know. I don't know everything. But you have to be able to look at what happened. You have to be able to look at the facts. And the fact is her employer benefited from this contract, and she benefited from it. I don't care if she says she didn't. She works for the employer, so she's getting money from this employer. And so, I mean, just the facts are out there. Now we know. You either think there's something here or there's not. I know Little Rock, though, and I would ask the people of District 16 to trust me. I wish I didn't know what I know, but I do know it. I wish I haven't seen or read the stuff that I've seen and read, but I have. And I'm telling you, Little Rock is sick. The Marble Palace is sick. And I don't mean the city of Little Rock. I know there's people in Little Rock right now listening. I'm sorry. When I say Little Rock, I'm talking about the politics of it, not your city, okay? The Marble Palace is sick. And it is a hotbed of corruption. It is a hotbed of dishonesty. They don't want to record their committee votes. They want you back home left in the dark. When I first got into Arkansas politics, I was challenging an old Democrat state representative, not challenging electorally. I was taking him to task on the airwaves, and he told me, because this is when I first found out. This was back in 2010, and I first found out that in Little Rock, they don't actually record their committee votes. And there was a pro-life bill that a Democrat in my area didn't vote on. He had left the committee, and I was talking about it, and I eventually talked to him, or my producer at the time talked to him, and this man said, it doesn't matter what you do, nobody here, nobody back home in Northeast Arkansas cares what goes on in Little Rock, and I'm going to get reelected. Guess what? No one cared. He got reelected. Very sad. Very sad thing. And that is when I knew we had to have a lot more truth, a lot more light. That's when I knew how sick it was. I didn't even really know how sick it was, by the way, actually. But that's when I was like, gosh, that's just one guy. Man, he's awful. No, there were more of them. They were clones. And they were taking the Marble Rock. And they're in that bubble. And they feel like they're somebody. Folks, the Marble Palace is sick. And there's a ton of corruption. There's also good people down there that need your help. And you can choose to send them Bob Bailey and give them help, or you can choose Senate District 16 to send them more of the same and give them no help. Joe, I'd like for us to listen to State Representative Josh Miller. On Monday, we've let you listen to Alan Clark. He was here for Bob Bailey on Monday. So was State Representative Josh Miller. If you can cue that video up, Joe, and play whenever you're ready. Here is State Representative Josh Miller about Bob Bailey on Monday night.
Thank you all. About 20 years ago, I enrolled in Arkansas Tech right out of high school and came over here and was here for 2 years before Tech started sending letters home to mom and dad saying, don't ever send that boy back over here. I never thought I'd come.
Oh, well, looks like we got a problem there. We can refresh that. We also have an echo. Here we go. All right. So I'm back on. Just tell me when you get that going and get the echo out of here.
Don't ever send that boy back over here. I never thought I'd come back to Russellville for any other reason than to pay unpaid fines. Proud to be here. Does anybody care if I'm honest? Okay. Number one, I'm doing something right now I swore about 2 years ago I'd never do. And that is get out here and support somebody that I don't really know in a political race, again, and set myself up for disappointment and getting just mad. I've done it before. A lot of the folks in here know ones that we've supported, written checks to, gone to campaign for, promised us conservative governing, said, oh, we're going to be with you. That lasted about 2 weeks. They drank the Kool-Aid, and I don't even care to talk to them anymore. Like, I'm serious. I don't speak to me. I take it personal. I don't get a lot of lobbyist money, and the money that I spend and send to other folks is money that I've earned. And it's something I take very serious. And when you double cross and go back on your word, I don't like that. Just be who you say you are. So, all that being said, here I am.
All right. We got to take a break, folks. That was Josh Miller. Maybe we'll get a little bit more of that if we have time left or tomorrow. This is how serious these guys like Josh Miller, they need reinforcements. They need true conservatives. The people of Senate District 16, you guys are voting for more than Senate District 16. You guys are voting for every single conservative legislator out there that is down there, and they are struggling, and they are being buried by an establishment that is run by money, and it is run by dishonesty. And folks, this is your opportunity. So please call everybody you know, tell them to vote. People who know people who live in Russellville or Pope County or Newton County or Carroll County, call them and tell them to go and vote. Every true conservative in the state needs to be invested in this, because this is truly the establishment versus liberty and freedom. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment. Hey, Joe, are you there? Say something to the audience, Joe, if you're there. I just want to say thanks to Joe. Joe, talk to me, man. Are you there? No? He probably doesn't even have his headphones on. Probably doesn't even have his mic on.
I just have to make sure. I just have to get the transitions in so that way everything's set up for whenever the music plays at the end of the hour.
Okay, well, thank you. Hey, Joe, I just want to say thanks. Our technology, though, worked a lot better today. We didn't have any interruptions. Is that correct? Knock on wood?
Yeah, no interruptions as of right now.
Okay, well, we've only got like a minute left. I just want to say thanks, Joe, for getting things sorted out. And I want to say thanks to all of you who are watching Conduit News Radio and help us get the truth out there, folks, across the state of Arkansas. And we are focusing, I believe, on the issues and the esoteric minutia that a lot of people who, let me just say this. The smaller the amount, or the smaller the group of people that know the specifics of an issue, the more opportunity there is for corruption and deception and lies to flourish. So that's why we dive into the minutia of this particular Senate race, or that's why we dive into the minutia of what really happened in committee. Because the smaller amount of people that understand how a mechanism works, the more opportunity there is for corruption, because the less people that know. So we are shining that light of truth. We're going to continue to do that. And folks, if you want to get this program, you can go to conduitnews.com. That's conduitnews.com. Click on archives, or go to facebook.com/conduitnews. This video will be available in mere moments for you to go back and watch it again. The news today, Conduit News can report that Breanne Davis, as a school board member, her company, SAS Institute, received a $50,000 contract with from the Russellville School District. And this happened and was finalized right before this Senate race kicked off. And so those are the facts. She claims no financial benefit from that contract. However, she works for, her employer is the people who got the contract. So that's kind of, obviously she did benefit financially because she works for them. Anyway, folks, we're going to have more. I'll be back here tomorrow live from Russellville, the Bob Bailey for Senate headquarters. Folks, Bob Bailey's a true conservative. He's anti-establishment. People in District 16, you can go vote today. Early voting has commenced. Arkansas, be safe.